House number 1. This is the Charlemont Inn in Massachusetts, and it's been standing since 1787, which makes it nearly 240 years old. That date is literally painted on the building itself, big block letters reading 1776, and the inn stretched across the upper gable, visible from the road before you even reach the front steps. The guest list here reads like a history textbook. Mark Twain stayed here. So did Calvin Coolidge, a sitting president of the United States. And so, according to local history, did Benedict Arnold, a man remembered for one thing: betrayal. 3 names spanning over 2 centuries, all passing through the same 22 guest rooms inside this one building. At 13,761 square feet, this inn has been repeatedly named one of the most haunted locations in New England, featured across countless paranormal investigation articles and ghost hunting shows. That reputation didn't come from nowhere. It came from centuries of guests checking in and out of the same rooms, the same hallways, the same staircases, long before anyone was filming it for a camera crew. The front door is barely holding on, faded blue paint peeling directly off warped wood, a small taped-up notice stuck to the glass, the whole entrance swallowed by overgrown bushes and vines that have clearly not been trimmed back in years. Whoever last locked that door didn't come back to maintain it. Inside, a narrow wooden staircase climbs up into shadow, dark stained steps leading toward a black doorway at the top where you genuinely cannot see what's waiting beyond it. At the base of that staircase, half a mattress sits abandoned against the wall next to a rounded archway leading into another room. Someone started clearing this place out and stopped partway through. One of the bathrooms still has a clawfoot tub sitting under a floral curtain, rings hanging loose on a bent rod, an old pink hanger dangling off the edge like laundry day just never finished. Faded pink striped wallpaper lines the hallway walls throughout the building. The kind of pattern that hasn't been in style for decades, still stretching wall to wall like time simply stopped moving here at some point. The back of the building is worse. Windows are covered over with plastic sheeting and what looks like spray paint markings across the glass, the red trim faded and cracked, the roof line sagging in sections. A building built to house travelers for 240 years is now sitting quiet, empty, and slowly falling apart in a small Massachusetts town. And the price tag on all of this history? $160,000. A structure that hosted a president, a literary icon, and a traitor to his country, considered one of the most haunted buildings in the entire region, is asking less than the cost of a modest single-family home in most parts of the country. Built in 1787. Hosted Mark Twain, Calvin Coolidge, and Benedict Arnold under the same roof. Named repeatedly as one of New England's most haunted locations. Now sitting with a collapsed mattress at the bottom of its staircase, a floral curtain still hanging over an abandoned clawfoot tub, and windows boarded over in the back, waiting for $160,000 and someone brave enough to spend the night before deciding whether to save it. House number 2. This is the same Batman house in Bloomington, Indiana we've already covered, but here's the angle worth leading with. It's built entirely from Indiana limestone, top to bottom, and limestone has long been believed by paranormal enthusiasts to store electromagnetic and psychic energy, acting almost like a recording device for whatever happens inside a building over time. Combine that with the fact that this house started life as Weir Funeral Home, and you've got a building made of the exact material people believe holds onto energy, built specifically to process the dead. Built in 1895 by John Waldron Sr. As a wedding gift for his daughter and her husband Ira C. Batman, this house blends 3 separate Victorian architectural styles at once: French, Second Empire, Queen Anne, and Romanesque Revival. Architect John Nichols didn't just design a home, he built twin stone turrets that pierce the skyline 2 blocks from the courthouse square, giving the place a fortress-like silhouette that still dominates downtown Bloomington. Before it was ever a home, bodies passed through this building as Weir Funeral Home. Nobody knows exactly when that ended. After that, it became the Labor Temple, another chapter the listing admits has 0 documented dates. Then in 1974, Dennis and Nancy Garrett bought it, spent 2 years preparing it, and opened the Garrett Antique Shop in 1976, which ran for nearly 50 years until Nancy passed away in December 2023. 3 completely different purposes across 130 years. And the listing outright states that everything about those first 2 eras has been lost to history. Walk through the photos now, and the Garrett's antique collection is still sitting inside. Dark carved wood cabinets, ornate mirrors framed in wood built into the fireplace mantels, a stained glass lamp shaped like a lotus hanging over an empty kitchen where a lone white refrigerator sits abandoned. But layered underneath all that inventory, the building itself is failing. Ceilings peel in wide sheets. Walls are stained yellow, pink, water damaged in long streaks. Floor tiles are patched together in mismatched greens and grays like sections were replaced piecemeal over decades without anyone matching the original. Structurally, this is a 7,570 square foot house holding a library, a formal dining room, and a basement split into an exercise room, playroom, and workshop, on top of an attic and lower level that the listing says push total usable space as high as 8,000 square feet. Nobody's giving a firm number for a building this old. And here's the mechanism selling it. An online auction running the entire month of November into December 1st, closing at 8 p.m. with a soft close clause, meaning any bid placed in the final 3 minutes automatically resets the countdown. A building made of stone believed to hold psychic residue, sitting on top of a funeral home's foundation, being sold off through a system engineered to keep people bidding against each other until the very last second. Built in 1895 from limestone said to trap energy within its walls, constructed on the site of a funeral home, cycling through an undocumented labor hall, and finally a 50-year antique shop that only closed when its owner died. Peeling ceilings and water-stained walls sit beneath twin stone turrets that have watched over downtown Bloomington for 130 years. Whatever this house has absorbed across all 3 of its lives, it's now being auctioned off to whoever's willing to outlast everyone else in the final 3 minutes. House number 3. This is the Powers Mansion in Decatur, Illinois, built in 1900, and it doesn't just have a staircase, it has an elevator. In a house from 1900. That single detail tells you how much money went into this place when it was built, and it also means somewhere inside this 7,730 square foot mansion is a vertical shaft that's been sitting mechanically dormant for over a century. The front entrance alone looks like a state capitol building. Massive fluted columns support a curved portico with a green oxidized copper roof, wrapping around a second-floor balcony with matching balustrade railings. You enter underneath a circular staircase that spirals up to the second floor, the kind of architectural statement piece most houses don't even attempt. Inside, this home has 7 bedrooms and 6 bathrooms, split between 4 full baths and 2 half baths, plus a 1,300 square foot ballroom. A private ballroom inside a personal residence, built specifically for hosting events large enough to need dedicated dance space. To the right of the entrance sits an all-wood formal dining room. Straight ahead, a 40 by 19 foot living room with its own fireplace. But the photos tell a very different story from that description. One massive room, likely that ballroom space, is stripped down to bare walls with a curved wood-beamed ceiling, ornate crown molding still intact but crumbling at the edges, and a filthy red patterned carpet covered in debris. Something long and shapeless sits abandoned in the middle of the floor. Floral curtains hang untouched in the arched windows, faded from what was clearly once an opulent space. The main staircase overlooks a second-floor landing wrapped in busy floral wallpaper and dark teal carpet scattered with fallen debris and paper. A brass lantern-style chandelier hangs frozen above the railing and through an open doorway at the base of the stairs. You can see straight into a shadowed room that the photo barely illuminates. One bedroom is painted a deep navy blue, completely empty except for a gold chandelier and heavy floral drapery still hanging in the windows, carpet stained and littered with debris across the floor. The master suite upstairs supposedly has an all-marble bathroom, But based on the condition of every other room photographed, that marble hasn't seen maintenance in a long time either. Then there's the detail that stops you. A narrow closet-like doorway leads into a tiny vertical space lined with thin, colorful vertical striped wallpaper, red, green, and blue stripes running floor to ceiling in a space barely wide enough to stand in. No explanation given for what this room was used for. It just sits there, dark, cramped, and strange, tucked between wood-paneled walls elsewhere in the house. You access the mansion's 4-car garage by driving directly into the basement from the rear of the property, meaning underneath this entire ballroom and grand staircase sits a full underground garage built directly into the foundation. Built in 1900 with a working elevator, a 1,300 square foot ballroom, and 6 bedrooms plus a marble master bath upstairs. A circular staircase leading to a second floor wrapped in decaying floral wallpaper, a mysterious striped closet tucked into the woodwork, and an underground 4-car garage built directly into the basement. All of it, over 7,700 square feet total, asking under $300,000 for whoever's ready to find out exactly what that narrow striped room was built for. House number 4. This is the same North Adams Victorian we've covered before, this time listed at $199,500. Built in 1880, converted at some point into a 5-family building, with 6 bedrooms and 5 bathrooms spread across 4,621 square feet. Each apartment had its own separate 100-amp electrical panel, 5 families running independent power through one aging structure at once. The back of this house tells the real story. The rear exterior siding is completely stripped down to bare weathered wood and old insulation board, holes punched through in multiple places, edges curling and blackened like they've been exposed to fire or decades of rot. A second-floor porch juts out from the back, its railing collapsing, boards scattered and rotting across the deck floor, debris piled up beneath it where the structure has partially given way. Up top, the third-floor roof deck, the one the listing specifically advertises for its downtown views, is now just exposed framing. Broken shingles, open beams, no walls left intact around what was supposed to be a private outdoor space for whoever lived in that top unit. The dormer windows just below it are cracked, trimmed in scalloped shingle work that's peeling apart at the edges. That gracious curved staircase mentioned in the listing is still there, dark mahogany railing sweeping in a continuous spiral up through the building. But the plaster wall running beside it is fractured with a long visible crack stretching the full height of the stairwell, and paint is peeling off the curved wall in wide chalky sheets. Through an open doorway at the top, you can see a door frame with plaster crumbling directly above it, chunks missing from the header. Inside one of the front rooms, wallpaper hangs down in long torn strips from the ceiling, exposing bare wall beneath in patches all across the room. A pair of paneled double doors stand open into the next space, dark water stains spreading across the ceiling directly above the doorframe, and an old cast iron radiator sits untouched below it. Out back, there's a detached 2-car garage, simple and boxy, sitting in the snow separate from all this decay. The one structure on the property that looks completely unaffected by whatever's happening inside the main house. Built in 1880, split into 5 separate residences, each with their own power panel, centered around a curved staircase leading to a 3rd-floor unit whose roof deck has partially collapsed into open framing. Rear siding stripped down to bare board and scorched at the edges, a stairwell wall cracked top to bottom, and torn wallpaper peeling off the walls in the front rooms where light still pours in through original windows. A house built for 5 families, now sitting empty, asking $199,500 for whoever's ready to find out what's actually keeping that 3rd floor from falling in completely. House number 5. This mansion at 250 Douglas Street in San Francisco has 13 listed bedrooms and 0 bathrooms. Built in 1885 for $7.35 million, this Baroque Queen Anne showpiece is currently split into 14 individually designed apartment units, all tenant-occupied, and somehow the listing counts 13 bedrooms without a single bathroom attached to any of them. Designated San Francisco landmark #80 on December 7th, 1975, this house was originally built as a single grand private residence before being converted into apartments in the early 20th century. Twin towers rise off either side of the front facade, capped with dark domed roofs, giving the whole structure a fortress-like silhouette that's dominated this stretch of Eureka Valley for over 140 years. Step through the front doors, dark carved wood etched with ornate glasswork, and the interior is dripping in original detail. A grand entry hall runs deep red carpet wall to wall beneath a coffered gold ceiling. Stained glass panels glow above the interior doors, floral patterns catching light in reds, greens, and yellows. Heavy wood paneling covers every wall. Carved Corinthian columns frame the doorways, and a massive gilded mirror frame hangs directly above a black marble fireplace carved with intricate relief work. The central staircase curves upward in dark polished wood, its newel post carved into a thick decorative column, matching the same wood paneling that runs continuously through the halls. Antique furniture sits staged throughout, a Victorian display cabinet, a carved sideboard topped with a mirror and porcelain vases, everything preserved like the building never stopped being a private residence, even after it was carved into 14 separate homes. Here's where it gets stranger. Each of those 14 units is separately metered for PG&E, meaning 14 individual electric accounts running through one building. Building amenities include 2 sets of coin-operated washers and dryers, and a single car garage that's leased out completely separately from any of the residential units. There's also a 2-room non-residential office space with bathroom access, 1 room currently leased to an outside business, the other used as the building's management office. That's apparently the only bathroom situation clearly defined anywhere in this listing. The sale isn't just the mansion either. It includes an adjacent buildable lot, currently holding a rentable studio cottage, zoned RH2 for potential future development or expansion. So whoever buys this isn't just acquiring a 140-year-old landmark, they're acquiring expansion rights next door to it. Built in 1885, converted from a single-family mansion into 14 separately metered apartments sometime in the early 1900s, landmarked by the city in 1975, and still wrapped in the same carved wood, stained glass, and blood-red carpet it's had for generations. 13 bedrooms. 0 bathrooms. 14 tenants currently living inside a registered San Francisco landmark, paying rent inside rooms that still look staged for Victorian house guests who checked out over a century ago. House number 6. This 1860 Victorian in Brunswick, Missouri sits on 2.6 acres with 7 fireplaces spread across roughly 4,400 square feet. 7 separate fireplaces in one house tells you exactly how many rooms once depended on wood heat just to survive a Missouri winter before anyone had central heating. The exterior is deep red brick, capped with white cornice trim and green painted porch columns, standing isolated against bare winter trees and a blanket of snow, with almost no other structures visible nearby. There's an actual sense of isolation baked into the photos themselves, the nearest neighbor barely in frame, just open snow-covered ground stretching out around the house on all sides. Inside, this home is fully furnished and staged like someone still lives there. Deep patterned wallpaper in blues and golds covers the entry hall, leading to a wooden door with a stained green glass transom window glowing above it. An antique doll in a bonnet and green dress sits perched on a side table near the entrance, positioned deliberately in the frame, staring back at the camera. The parlor beyond is dressed in full Victorian excess, burgundy tufted furniture, layered curtains in coordinating pink and gold, a stained glass window catching light in the corner, and yet another antique doll visible on a table in the next room over. The grand entry features a dramatic spiraling staircase, and the listing specifically calls out a captivating third-story tower. Open-ended potential space the realtor suggests could become a studio, library, or retreat. No defined purpose, just an entire third-floor tower sitting there waiting for someone to decide what happens inside it. Out back, the property includes something most listings never mention: an original water tower, and a separate summer kitchen, both still standing. The water tower is a leaning wooden structure with a weathered barrel-shaped tank on top, red paint peeling away from the boards, a small door cut into its base like it once served as functional storage or access point. Next to it sits a small detached red building. The summer kitchen, boarded windows, quiet and untouched. Both structures looking like they haven't been used for their original purpose in decades, but were never torn down either. This is a home built for one family generations ago. 7 fireplaces, heating rooms across multiple stories, a spiral staircase leading up to a tower nobody's assigned a purpose to yet, dolls positioned throughout the staged interior like silent occupants, and 2 original outbuildings still standing on the property that most 1860s homes lost to time long ago. Built in 1860, sitting alone on 2.6 acres with only 1 bathroom despite 3 bedrooms and 7 working fireplaces. A 3rd-story tower with no defined use, a leaning wooden water tower still standing out back, and antique dolls staged throughout every room of the house, asking $295,000 for a piece of Missouri history that's been preserved almost exactly as it stood over 160 years ago, waiting for whoever's ready to find out what that tower room is really for. House number 7. This isn't a house. It's the historic Itman Company Store, built in the town of Itman, West Virginia between 1923 and 1925, and it's one of the last major standing relics of the entire Appalachian coal boom era. The stonework alone tells you this was built to last. Italian immigrant stonemasons cut the stone directly from cliffs across the Guyandotte River, hauled it to the site by hand, and built a structure so solid it's still standing intact a full century later, even after everything around it has changed. The town itself is named after Isaac T. Mann, the principal shareholder of Pocahontas Fuel Company and president of the Bank of Bramwell. He wasn't just an investor, he built an entire company town around this store and named it after himself. The nearby Pocahontas No. 3 mine started production in 1917, and this building became the beating economic heart of everyone who worked it. Here's what makes this place genuinely unsettling once you understand its full function. This wasn't just a grocery store. Coal miners and their families bought food, clothing, household goods, and furniture here. But the listing also states plainly that residents purchased caskets here too. In the middle of a coal mining town where deadly accidents were common, this building sold the tools of daily survival and the boxes people were buried in, under the same roof. Beyond retail, this building held the general offices of Pocahontas Fuel, a post office, a doctor's office, a pool room, and a barbershop. Every essential service a mining family needed funneled through one company-controlled building. You worked for the company, and then you spent your wages back inside a building the company also owned, right down to buying your own coffin there if it came to that. Architect Alex B. Mahood designed this in a Gothic stone-style, arched stone colonnades running along the courtyard, steep slate-covered rooflines, tall chimneys rising off multiple sections of the building. From above, it forms an almost fortress-like compound, wings extending in different directions, all connected by covered stone walkways. Inside, the decay is extensive. Wallpaper peels in long strips off crumbling plaster walls, ceiling tiles sag and hang loose, dark wood paneling and window trim remain intact in some sections while the walls around them disintegrate. It's been decades since anyone ran a business out of these rooms, but the original woodwork is stubbornly still there, refusing to fully give way. Listed on the National Register of Historic Places in 1990, this building sits on 75 acres, taxed at just over $900 a year, asking $250,000 for the entire property. A structure built by hand from Riverstone that once controlled where a company town's coal miners spent every dollar they earned, right up until the day they died and were sent back through its doors one final time. House number 8. This is the former Calhoun County School building in Grantsville, West Virginia, built in 1923 entirely out of cut stone, and it looks less like an educational facility and more like a fortress designed to keep something in. 4 turret-style corner towers with crenellated tops rise off each corner of the building, giving it an almost castle-like silhouette that has nothing in common with a typical American schoolhouse. For 73 years, this building held the Calhoun County Red Devils, generations of students moving through the same stone hallways under the same turreted rooftop. At over 26,000 square feet across 3 full stories, this wasn't a small rural schoolhouse. It was built to hold serious numbers of students inside solid cut stone walls that have survived over a century without significant structural failure. Look closely at the windows and something stands out immediately. Multiple windows across the front facade are boarded shut with dark red painted panels, sitting right alongside intact glass windows, creating an uneven checkerboard pattern of open and sealed openings running across all 3 floors. No explanation given for which rooms got boarded and which didn't, just a building where entire sections have been deliberately closed off from view while others remain wide open to the outside. A massive stone archway frames the main entrance, a heavy wooden door sitting in shadow beneath it, the only entry point into a building this size that's still visible from the photos. Twin narrow stone turrets flank the sides, complete with small window slits, more resembling defensive lookout points than anything you'd expect on a school. The listing states the current owners have already installed a brand new roof membrane and repaired the top floor ceiling support beams, meaning someone has actively been maintaining the structural bones of this building even while it sat empty and unused. Hardwood floors run throughout the main building, still original, still intact, just waiting to be refinished after decades of foot traffic from students who are now long grown, likely many of them gone themselves given the building's near century of history. The listing explicitly states there's no reported asbestos, which is a detail you don't see volunteered unless it's specifically been tested for, given the building's age and construction era. And then there's this. Buyers must have proof of funds just to view the property, not to make an offer. Just to walk inside and look around. Sitting on 2 acres with road frontage on all sides, the listing suggests turning this into a bed and breakfast, event space, museum, or what it calls a castle-style home. Built in 1923 as a school that held 3 generations of Red Devils for 73 straight years, this stone fortress now sits boarded up in patches, freshly re-roofed but still hollow inside, asking $225,000 for 26. 000 square feet of turreted stone hallways that once echoed with the sound of hundreds of students, and now sit silent behind boarded windows nobody's explaining the reasoning for.